Hey race fans, it's race day top 5 with me, Frank 5. Happy Labor Day, by the way. Southern 500, one of the most prestigious races in all of NASCAR, throwing it back to the early days of how NASCAR got started, and obviously one of the patriarch racetracks of our sport, where we know racing today from where it was in the past. It makes racing what it is today very, very special. Labor Day weekend, wonderful tribute schemes, great racing, side-by-side action, a lot of slipping and sliding based off of the track chewing up the tires, and perhaps the youngest winner ever in the Southern 500 punched his ticket to the playoffs last night. Number 1, Erik Jones. Yes, the Jones boy captured his first Bojangles Southern 500 victory last night at Darlington Raceway in a race that literally was 3.5 hours late to start because of Mother Nature, the effects of Hurricane Dorian. Erik Jones drove his butt off to get his second career win, winning over Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Brad Keselowski. What a superb performance by Erik Jones. And there's been a lot of talks lately this season about what's the future going to be next year for Erik Jones, because Christopher Bell's coming up, and he could be the guy that possibly takes over the 20 car for Erik Jones, considering Jones has not been able to perform well. And earlier this year, after the June race, Erik Jones was outside the playoffs, and he was probably not going to make the playoffs based on the way he was performing, and maybe it was also because of the cars, or maybe it's his driving ability. But ever since Sonoma, they've turned it up. They've turned up the heat. They've scored top 5s, top 10s. They've fought themselves back into the playoffs. And the win last night obviously secured their spot. But he held off two of NASCAR's greatest race car drivers, Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson, to do it. I mean, Erik Jones had to fight for his life to win this race, and also shut everybody up about, I'm probably going to be back with Joe Gibbs Racing next year. And after the race, it was reported that he probably is going to have a deal announcement pretty soon with Joe Gibbs Racing, which, I don't want Erik Jones out of this ride. I think he's the right guy for the car. Just a win really needed to shut everybody up about what's going to happen to Erik Jones. He's got to win. He's in the playoffs. Now he can go have some fun and put beside the whole announcement and rumors about is he going to be coming back, because it looks like he's coming back. And this Jones kid is something else. His second career win. He's won at two of NASCAR's biggest tracks, Daytona and Darlington, for his first career wins. He's Austin Dillon 2.0, winning at the biggest tracks in NASCAR. That's pretty good for this Jones boy. Number 2, Kyle Larson, still searching for that first win of the season after a dominant car last year. Had a really strong car last night, and it looked to be nobody's going to contest with Kyle Larson. But unfortunately, on the early pit stops of the night, the pit crew had a tough time getting some of the tires on, particularly the left front and right rear, and it cost him a lot of track position. He had to dig and claw his way back up to the field. Got to the lead later in the race, but Erik Jones on one of the latter restarts got by Kyle Larson fair and square, literally bowled his way past him, and nothing Larson can do about it. So a second place finish for Larson is a really good result. They've literally upped the game the last few weeks. They've gotten top 10s after the beginning of the season. It was literally the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad season for Kyle Larson. Now it's starting to turn around, but hopefully he can get a win to make it not such a bad season, but a good season, considering he hasn't won in 2 years. That's ridiculous. I mean, he's got to win eventually. He almost did it last night, but just couldn't do anything about Erik Jones. Number 3, the Busch brothers. Very, very strong all night long. Kurt Busch and his throwback scheme to his 69 Chevy Camaro won stage 1. Little brother Kyle Busch had to start all the way at the back of the pack because of an engine change, because he didn't qualify that well, and 33rd because the motor was not showing good horsepower, so he had to change the engine. He drove from 33rd all the way to the lead and won stage number 2, and looked to be in contention towards the end, running down Erik Jones the last few laps, but a couple of graces with the wall, more than just a Darlington stripe. He literally pounded the wall the last couple of laps and literally just started falling off the pace and had to settle for 3rd place. So I know Kyle Busch fans are probably, and Kyle made the comment after Bristol, I'm sick and tired of finishing behind my teammates. Well, it happened again. But on the bright side for Kyle Busch fans, you did clinch the regular season championship last night, considering your performance based off of Joey Logano's performance, finishing back in the top 15 or whatever it was. So Kyle Busch is the regular season champion. That's 15 extra bonus points to help him towards the playoffs. That's 45 playoff points total. There's no doubt Kyle Busch is going to go to Homestead. Whether he wins the championship remains to be seen. Number 4, the throwback paint schemes. Darlington throwing it back to the early 90s, and there were a couple schemes throwing it back to, like, people's cars, 70s and 80s schemes, and even, like, a scheme of a guy that won the Daytona 500 12 years ago, and Kevin Harvick, what Joey Logano did. The paint schemes this year were really good. One of my favorites, Bubba Wallace throwing it back to the late Adam Petty with the green, yellow, red car with Victory Junction that Kyle Petty runs, and it's been in operation for 15 years. What a wonderful paint scheme. William Byron, who won the pole for the race, supporting Cole Trickle's City paint scheme from the movie Days of Thunder. A wonderful, wonderful paint scheme. One of my favorites, honestly. Kyle Busch throwing it back to Bobby Hill's Snickers car in the early 1990s. Kyle Larson throwing it back to Ricky Craven's Kodiak car from 95 and 96. Erik Jones threw it back to his late model car because it was his 100th race last night. Jimmy Johnson threw it back to his 1995 Baja truck, which looked amazing. It really did. There were a lot of nice throwback schemes last night. The Bubba Wallace and William Byron runs are probably my favorite by far. But if I had to throw in an underrated paint scheme out of all of them, I'd probably have to go with Ryan Blaney's scheme honoring Michael Waltrip's Penso car in the early 90s. That was definitely a really nice paint scheme. And number 5, the playoff bubble. There have been so many talks last couple of weeks. Who's going to make it? Who's not going to make it? Well, last night at the end of the race, the guys that were above 58 points at the end of the night, including Erik Jones with the win, clinched their spot, including Kyle Larson, William Byron, Eric Almirola, and Ryan Blaney. So they clinched their spots. They're in the playoffs. That means 2 spots remain available next week. And the bubble drivers last night, they all had kind of a up and down night for the most part. The biggest story, obviously, of the night, Jimmy Johnson had perhaps the best run of the year last night. Literally so strong, earned a lot of stage points, and it looked for a moment he was going to steal off a good finish and be at least a couple points above the cut line, or maybe just a few points below the cut line. Until a wreck off of turn number 4, which was not his fault. He was an innocent victim in a huge wreck that collected himself, Kurt Busch, William Byron, and Denny Hamlin. Jimmy Johnson is now 18 points behind the cut line going into Indianapolis. It's a must-win, honestly. He can still try to point his way in if he gets stage points, but it's basically a must-win. I don't know if Jimmy Johnson's going to make it, folks. This has just been... I know, Jimmy Johnson still has, upbeat, positivity in his system right now, but the runs lately are just not showing it. It's ridiculous. Ryan Newman had a rough night, finishing back in the top 25, and had a little bump from behind by Daniel Suarez, who's literally fighting with Newman for the last spot in the playoffs. Newman got turned by Suarez, and Newman said on the radio he's got another thing coming to him. So what goes around comes around. Yikes. Those guys were going at it. The one person that literally had a pretty good night was Clint Bowyer. Not a whole lot of points above the cut line, about maybe 8 to 10, 12 points, 8 points actually it is. He finished in the race with a 6th place finish, a really good result for Clint Bowyer. That's his 2nd top 10 of this track. Yes, you heard me right. Clint Bowyer has only 2 top 10s at Darlington. One from 2007 and last night. This track has just been really rough on Clint Bowyer, but last night he was able to put together a good finish, which hopefully helped him, propelling him to Indianapolis next week, deciding who's going to make the last, 2 spots in the playoffs. It remains to be seen. Finally, driver recap, Chase Elliott. We started really well, up in the top 5, top 10, had the lead for a little bit, and then we just got back in the traffic, and the car just got so loose, and we fell a couple laps behind. We finished 19, 2 laps down. That's Darlington, though. What are you going to do? Go to Indianapolis, and lucky we're in the playoffs, and we're not back there trying to fight our way into the playoffs. We have 2 wins, we have a lot of playoff points, and the playoffs obviously start in a couple weeks, so, that's the only good thing I could take away from last night, other than I liked his paint scheme honoring back to his father, Bill Elliott's scheme in the early 80s. So next week's the regular season finale with 2 spots remaining to be decided. It'll be Clint Bowyer, Ryan Newman, Daniel Suarez, and Jimmy Johnson fighting for the last 2 spots, 4 drivers. But don't discount the other guys, even though they're multiple points behind, they're not going to be able to point the way in. If one of those guys wins, it could turn the playoff grid around. And it could just be one guy getting in on points as far as, guys bound for the last couple spots. We don't know what's going to happen, but it should be an entertaining race. Who's going to capitalize as far as the playoff drivers is gaining momentum in this next week's race to lead them up to the playoffs in Las Vegas? And who's going to get the last 2 spots in Indianapolis? We shall find out. So subscribe, like, happy Labor Day weekend to everybody. Congratulations to the Jones boy, Erik Jones, and I'll see you next week.